Hmm. Okay, so today we are talking about internet identity. I have one repository, so one code base ready where we will integrate internet identity. So we will have a backend and a front end, and we will try to log in and get information about our principle, so our identity with internet identity. Before that, I want to explain a little bit how internet identity came to be and how identity works on the IC in general. So, well, the basis of everything is, of course, this pair of keys. So every time you see an identity, behind the scenes, there is a pair of key, which consists of a private key, public key. Private key gives you access to your account, all the ICPs, the canisters that you own. And the public key is where your principal is derived from. So, yeah, the principal that you see in DFX or also the principal that you see in your wallet. We know how to manage identities with DFX. We've already seen that. Um, okay. There is something missing in this chapter. I'm pretty sure there was more. Uh, that's strange. Well, anyway, so internet identity has been essentially created to solve a problem, which is that every message on the internet computer needs to be signed. And so creating a signature requires user consent. This comes from the web authentication standard. So it's another standard that is not specific to the IC. It's generalized to service on the internet. It's a standard that is global from the W3C consortium. So a lot of companies and startups are using web authentication. And it's a standard where essentially, let me see if there is the documentation available. Yeah, here. You have to authenticate with a credential. So you know when you go to a website and you have to prove your identity with either a YubiKey or a second factor authentication. Essentially, you're signing using this standard, and on the IC, it means that you would have to be able to do an action every time you interact with an application. So, for example, if you use a wallet, you will notice that every time you have to confirm um, that you want to perform an action, and so it would be very bad user experience if you were to have like Discover or OpenChat that would ask you for confirmation for signature. So you would have to use Face ID, Touch ID, Windows Hello, all those tools every time you want to perform an action on the internet computer. So internet identity is a canister that creates delegation for you. You have passkeys. Passkeys are devices that you use and you can log in to your main anchor. So the anchor is the number that is stored in this canister. And essentially it's a link between all your devices, this anchor, and then the canister that you want to log in with. It's creating a delegation that you can use. So it's creating a delegation, for example, if we use the Motoko Bootcamp as an example, it will here when I'm logging. So the first time I'm going to sign a message, and because I'm signing, I have this prompt where I need to confirm. So this is my main identity, and then it's creating a delegation. And every time I go to submit and I do some action, I don't need to sign anymore. And this delegation is valid for 30 minutes up to, you can set that, the developer can set a longer time frame if they want to. Now, how do we work with internet identity? I'm going to use this tutorial called Integrate Internet Identity. And I'm using also the sample project from DFX. So if you want to follow along, this is the tutorial. The first thing that we want to do is to make this who am I function. So we have already seen that in the past. And so public shared folder function who am I. This will return the color. We've already seen that. And so we can use that later. After that, this is how we would integrate internet identity in our code. So we can use a feature from DFX called DFX pull, which essentially enables us to pull the canister, pull the code of a canister, and just use this canister locally. So we can just do this, internet identity in our dfx.json. So we essentially add one canister here. This is the ID of the canister of internet identity in the mainnet. And so we will just pull this canister from the mainnet, essentially pulling the source code like this. So this is the next step is to run this command, dfx deps is dfx dependencies. And so dfx deps pull will pull this canister. And now you can see that in deps, I have the candid interface of the internet identity canister here. And I have this list of pull canister. So I have the, I think I even have the, I should have the WebAssembly module somewhere. I think it will be downloaded later, but there is a reference to it at least. Okay, now I need to init this canister. So again, dfx deps init. Okay. We are going to install a package. So this will be added to our package.json, and we will have this dfx definitely hot clients, which we will use to work with internet identity. Okay, so you can see that this has been added here. Okay, now we have this code, so it's telling us to copy paste this code and have it inside our index.javascript. So here, so I will need to modify this, I guess, from. Okay, so right now we don't have any declaration folder. When you don't have any declaration folder, you can do dfx generate. So if you remember the lecture from yesterday, we had this generated folder called declaration. And so essentially they are generated by default the first time you deploy, but if you want to generate them before the first deployment, you can run dfx generate. And then in declaration, I have my canisters declaration. So I have internet identity backend. So yeah, because I have called the entire project internet identity. Might not be the best name that I've ever chosen, but this is my backend and this is my frontend and this is the internet identity canister. So now if I go back here, would make more sense to have the to change this to internet identity backends. Essentially what we are doing here is that we having the backend actor, so my actor in Motoko that is initialized here. And then we are leveraging our environment variables. So we have this .env that will be filled out on deployment with the canister ID for the internet identity. So we'll be able to access it. And then essentially we have this Who Am I button, which is this one. Well, looks like we don't have it. Yes, so I will need to modify this one. Let's say I will need to remove that. I'll change this to an ID of Who Am I. I'm probably, yeah, because I'm probably not using the same front end as the tutorial. So this button here, which we will call show Who Am I. Now we are selecting this button, then we are adding an event, which means that whenever we click this button, we will essentially query our principal from the backend. So actor.whoami, and then we will print that in our elements, which is going to be this one. So this, and I need a login button. So this login button will enable me to log in with internet identity. I'm using await hot client.create. So if we want to take a quick look at Definitely hot clients, the npm package, we want to take a look at the library and the documentation. Essentially, it's super easy to use. You just do hot client.create, so it's creating this hot client object for you. And then on the object, you can do .login. You give the time that you want this login to be living. So how many days or how many hours this delegation is valid. And then you can run a function on success of the login. After that, you can access your identity using hotclient.getIdentity. So here I'm creating this. It's starting the login process, and yeah, okay. I'm filling out the actor. So the actor that we have here, essentially after some time, we replace it by the actor that we have created, so the one that we are logged in. So let me show you if I do a defix deploy. Defix deploy. Need to start the replica first. So here we have some warning from the base library, but nothing problematic. And yeah, okay, so that's here. Essentially, we have our asset canister, and then we are uploading assets inside the asset canister. And then our frontend is available directly at this address. So 127.0.1, the port, and then the canister ID of our frontend canister. Now, if I click on who am I right now, I should see if everything works correctly. So I'm going to check if there is no error. I should see the anonymous identity. So if you remember, it should be like 2VX, something like this. Okay, so we have an issue. Cannot read properties of undefined, reading who am I. So let me see. So it's not finding the, it's not finding the who am I button, but let me see. Ah, no, I know what's happening. This one is not, yeah. We had the incorrect name for the backend, so now it should be better. I thought it was this button that was not found, but it's this one that is not found, I'm guessing. Well, just to be sure, I'll add this console.log here. So we have the anonymous identity. Now, if I click on login, I should see, okay, so nice. We don't have the canister ID. Looks like our internet identity canister is not deployed, or if it's deployed, it's not the correct canister. So let's take a look at .env. What is happening here? Internet identity canister ID. Yes. This one. So why is it saying that it's not found? Let's see the Candid UI. Ah, it seems like the internet identity canister is not existing, or at least it's not deployed. Why is that? Because we have it here. Is there some step that I'm missing here? Ah, yeah, I think I forgot to do dfx deps deploy, so probably it's not deploying the dependencies. Okay, yeah. Well, this is something I don't like here about dfx. I think it should make sense that dfx deploy would also deploy the one listed in the deps, but seems like it's not the case. So we have to wait. What is happening here? Why do we see why do we see the Candid UI? What is happening here? I'm going to access the front end through the web server. I'm guessing it's gonna be, yeah. So this is a test one, so we can create our internet identity. We should be the first one, and so we should get 10,000 as a number. Canister ID is required, but receive undefined. Okay. I guess that's the problem, that we don't have the correct canister ID. Ah, here, yes. This one is incorrect. We will make it. We'll make it. Just a matter of time. Okay, now that we are logged in, we should see a different principle, which should be, okay, so this is our principle using internet identity. Now, a fun, not so fun, but a little bit complex thing to understand is that the principle that you see with internet identity depends on the host you are connecting from. What does it mean? It means that if I'm using another frontend to talk to my canister, I will not have the same identity. So let's say I have a different frontend, like I'm going to create a new frontend, let's say frontend 2, which I will add here. So I will need to frontend 2. I will deploy this second frontend. Oh, yes, it's not as easy as doing this because I will need to recreate um, the whole Webpack configuration. Well, what I could do is do a simple trick, dfx new frontend 2. So I will create a second frontend, and this frontend will be able to interact with my backend from the other project because I'm still using the local replica, so I'll be able to communicate still. And I have everything that is already set up for me, so I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, here I cannot just like create a new frontend. I would need to, I mean, there is the whole Webpack config that would need to be modified and copied. So definitely not going to do that right now. I will remove the backend because I don't need it. I will copy paste this here, but I won't have access to this value, so I will need to hardcode. So I need to make some modification here. I would need to hardcode this canister, the FX canister ID, internet identity backend. So it's giving me the ID, which is this one for my backend. So I can hardcode it here. And also I would need to copy my declarations. So I really did not choose the correct names today. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Frontend to frontend, it's not a good choice. And here I just need, yeah, I just need the declaration for the backend. So this can go away, this can go away, this can go away. Okay, let's try it out. I always forget that the FX already adds some name for you when you do like the FX new. Okay, seems like we have quite a few issues. Yeah, we haven't added npm install definitely pod clients. Sorry about that. I think we should be good about after that. Okay. And why I really need to check into it because I don't understand why we have the candid UI here. And I don't think I can solve this problem. This doesn't make any sense. This is so strange. It's an issue that I have faced a few times already, but it never made any sense. So I'm just gonna use the local host. So I'm using the Webpack server. And okay, there is also one other thing that I forgot, which I forgot to replace the HTML file. So now we should be good. Okay. So we have our frontend 1, frontend 2. We have an issue here. Why do we have an issue? Yes, because we don't. Cannot read properties of undefined reading who am I? So it seems that we again have this issue where we cannot call the actor. I'm not following there. Well, we can log in, but we cannot call the who am I. We do have the ID here. Let's see, maybe the problem is this one. Ah, okay, actor is undefined. That's not a good sign. Yes, of course, because we don't have the process.env that gives us the canister ID. So I'm going to have to hard code that. Okay, this is not super clean, but it should work. Okay, I'm anonymous. I'm going to log in. So I'm logging with the exact same internet identity, right? It's the 10,000. And here, when I was logged in, if you remember, we had some principle, which was starting with OK. Okay. And here you will see that it's a completely different one. S4MKK. So it's completely different. This is what I wanted to show you. And so imagine that it's the case for every application on GIC. Even if you are coding the same canister like the backend, since you have you access from a different front end, the delegation is not going to be the same, and the identity that you're using will not be the same. There are some ways for one canister to have multiple front ends that share the same set of principles. But when you use internet identity, keep in mind that your principal ID depends on the application that you're using. So like on the NNS application, you will have some principle. On the Motoko Bootcamp dashboard, you will have some principle. On OpenChat, you will have some principle. Whereas with a plug wallet, for example, if you're familiar with the plug wallet that is here, you have an identity that is across all application is the same. So you have the same principle that you carry around. This is really specific to internet identity. And it's meant for privacy reasons. So you are not being able to be tracked across applications. Indeed, now we have standards that are in the work for especially the identity working group, which is a working group that's maybe I can show you, like there is a channel on the developer Discord. Identity and wallet. Is there any link to the repository? No, I don't see any link, but essentially there is a need for standards for applications to communicate. So like being able to link with the consent of users, identity across multiple applications. So for example, that would give access to features like if you have a neuron that is stuck on the NNS for like already 1 year, so that's a long time. Maybe you can have a special chat or special feature on or special benefit or perks on OpenChat. And right now we are not able to do that natively, so we would need to have those kinds of standards that enables user information to be shared across application with the consent of users. And so that's been worked on if you're curious about that. Yeah, that's about it for the internet identity part. If you're starting out an application on DIC right now, I really strongly recommend to use internet identity just because it's so easy to use and it's also very common across applications. I know that there are some issues with it. Like, for example, I know that some people with certain laptops are not able to log in using it, but most of the time it's really working smoothly. For me, it's working perfectly on mobile as well. And I would recommend to follow this team, NFID. This is a team that works on NFID, which is essentially an extension of Internet Identity. They're actually built on top of it, and they add like some features. For example, you can log in to your account through Google account, for example, if it's something you would like to do. You can use it as a wallet. You can use it to log in with an email address, and there are a lot of well, you can also associate a mobile phone with it, so you can have verifiable credentials that you can use, and yeah, knowledge base. So the developer portal, they have packages. And a few weeks ago, they were announcing working on a package that includes, yeah, okay, this one is going to be an identity kit that essentially enables you to log in with any provider. So you just implement it and you don't have to worry about, I need to integrate with Internet Identity, I need to integrate with Plug, I need to integrate with NFID. You just use their package and essentially they will integrate with all of the providers. But it's not, doesn't seem like it's 100% ready yet. It's still in work. Should be released pretty soon. I was thinking why some websites recognize my identity and some don't. You mean when you click and like when you click here, why sometimes you see a suggestion and sometimes not? It has more to do with your own browser and settings than the website that you're visiting. So essentially, if you're clearing your cache, you're going to lose those suggestions. Yeah. And if you visit with another browser, you're not going to see that. Like, for example, I'm using Chrome, but if I was using Firefox, I wouldn't see this identity suggestion. Regarding the front end, can you use framework like Angular to code the front end? So yes, maybe something I should show you. We go back to the documentation. They are using create apps IC app, which I'm not sure is 100% up to date, unfortunately. So yes, essentially by default on the IC, you can use any front end that you want. So you could use Svelte, you could use Vue, you could use Angular, you could use React, you could use Next.js, you could use SvelteKit. You could use any front end that you want. This one is not up to date. It's been 2 years since the latest commit, so I'm pretty sure it's not working now, which I'm not sure why it's in the documentation. But the hard part is to find the starter kit. And I can recommend a really good starter kit for Motoko, which I've seen this morning actually. Here. This is React, so it's not Angular that you were looking for, but here you have a starter kit with Vite, React, and Motoko that contains everything that you need to get started with having a backend in Motoko and a frontend with a JavaScript framework. So yeah, the only hard part would be to set up the front-end configuration, but then the IC part is straightforward. Wait, try this website. Okay. Cycles.watch. Okay. Uh, I know why. This one is different. It's using a different domain. So this is going to be confusing. I think I don't remember the exact reason, but there is like if you look, it's identity.ic0.app, and here it's identity.internetcomputer.org. Why there are two of them? It's not a scam. It's not a scam, but I don't remember why there are two of them. I think they made a migration. Like if you look at Juno, Juno builds. If you look at Juno and you try to log in, start building. Yeah, so you can. Juno uses internetcomputer.org by default. So if you click here, you're going to see internetcomputer.org. You can also sign in for now with deprecated method ic0.app. I'm not sure why it's deprecated method, because I'm using ic0.app as far as I remember. Yeah. It has something to do with migration. I think this. Yes, okay, so it has. This topic will probably help you understand the context. This is the creator of Juno that is here, actually giving an explanation, and he's saying to use icp0.app. Long story short, when I started Juno, we discussed with the community whether we should use identity.internetcomputer.org or identity.ic0.app as the main login domain for internet identity, because everything indicated a future migration of the domain, because icp0.app was flagged by anti-spam by an anti-spam blocklist, which meant that some people could not access it. You can read about that. It's like it has been removed. It was a false warning, and the community and the foundation has contacted the ISP provider to remove internet identity from the spam list, but it was a case. And so in the moment they kind of decided to migrate, but essentially they didn't migrate in the end. They wanted to migrate to have like a backup in case one domain would be flagged by most ISP providers, so you would still be able to use the other one. Now I recommend it to use identity.ic0.app, and you don't see your credential because of the web authentication standard that I've talked about, which means that your biometric USB keys are scoped to a single domain by the web browser. And that's about it for internet identity. Yeah. If there are no more questions, we can leave it there. And I see you in 1 hour and 10 minutes. See you guys, and good afternoon.